After more than 1 year of difficult preparations, the day has finally come when the mystery of Gallipoli will be remembered as either a success or a failure. This is a place untouched by scuba divers, rich in shipwrecks from throughout history. The Polish team's interest, however, lies in the bloodiest battle of history, a period of World War I and the naval operations in the Aegean Sea, especially in the Dardanelles. The first stage of the trip will be the flight to Istanbul. Among the members of the expedition are historians, underwater photographers, cameramen, a computer scientist, and an artist. The group must spend the night in Istanbul. The group uses this time to study the history and monuments of this population of 17 million. The Blue Mosque, with its characteristic place for the ritual washing before entering the mosque and prayer, and the minarets. An unforgettable evening, ending with the tasting of the Turkish cuisine. The morning of the next day. The route from Istanbul to Çanakkale is still waiting for them. The flight, mainly over the Sea of Marmara, the group uses this time to rest. Before landing, a great bird's-eye view of the Dardanelles Strait. Saturday. The substantive part of the expedition begins. The group must take the ferry from the Asian shore to the Gallipoli Peninsula and then to get on a bus to its western shore. Departure begins for the exploration of the first wreck. The journey takes an hour or so. There is no time to waste. Equipment that all of their lives depend on must be tested and prepared perfectly. The first dive in the Aegean is on the English patrol boat Lundy. She was a trawler with a capacity of 188 tons and was built in a British shipyard in 1908. Her crew consisted of 12 sailors. The ship sank on Monday, August 16, 1915, at Suvla Bay. According to British archives, the cause of her sinking was a collision with another vessel. Only one crew member on board was killed. The wreck lies at a depth of 28 meters, sitting even on its keel on the white sandy bottom. Conditions during this exploration are great. The good visibility allows detailed visual inspection and accurate inventory. After being in a hostile environment for almost a century, the wreck is very well preserved. All of its major components are easily recognizable. The stern at deck level is in the worst condition. The part right behind the superstructure is significantly raised. In this place, the plates and frames are strongly bent. This may have been the point of collision. The rudder and propeller are buried in the sand to half their height, but they show no signs of damage. During the exciting dive, the divers must remember that a longer stay at this depth will require the use of decompression. Failure to observe this cardinal rule is very dangerous and is associated with a direct threat of life. The sides of the wreck are intact and in very good condition. A detailed inspection allows us to establish that this ship was not sunk by artillery fire, as some Turkish sources claim. It is almost certain that the cause of sinking was a collision with the British freighter SS Kalin. Proof of this is found in the damaged stern. Before the exploration of this wreck, the group learns that the remains of a floating desalination station with its characteristic equipment is waiting for them at the bottom. How false this information was is proven a few months later, after the end of the expedition, after an arduous query. The wreck examined by them lies at a relatively shallow depth of 14 meters. It is in very poor condition. The sides are almost completely buried in the sand. Only the bow, at the height of the deck of the engine room, is visible. Amidships, there are 4 circular tanks, which look like steam boilers. For the very poor condition of this wreck, they are in relatively good shape. After careful measuring of the wreck, it turns out that almost 40 meters of the stern is missing. After a detailed analysis of archival material on sunken ships in the area, it is found that the English destroyer HMS Lewis, which was sunk on October 31st, 1915, ideally suits the wreck we found. The devices thought by the Turks to be desalination units are nothing but Yarrow-type steam boilers. The detailed inspection also helped to determine that the missing stern of the destroyer was detached and is probably somewhere closer to shore, where the vessel ran aground. The team's going to want to come back to this place and try to explain what happened to the wreck of the HMS Lewis. Little remained of the ship, which served the Allies as a breakwater, a temporary Williams pier, and now is being explored by the Polish team. She was called Milo and built in an English shipyard in 1865. Intended primarily as a cargo vessel, she was used for troop transport and war materials during the campaign. The precise measurements reveal that more than 3/4 of the ship is missing. A remarkable discovery is made. There are still tons of coal aboard. This material was deficient in time of war and should have been loaded to another vessel. Soon, however, storms will complete the destruction, and only the coal of the ship Milo will remain on the seabed. The last exploration in the Aegean Sea is on a landing barge. This type of vessel was primarily used to carry the wounded from the shore to the hospital ships. She lies exactly at a depth of 29 meters on a flat, sandy bottom. The wooden deck is, unfortunately, now history. Exploring inside the wreck, a hole in the shape of a triangle can be seen on the starboard side. This damage was made soon after the sinking of the barge, possibly as a result of being caught by a fishing net or anchor. The 2 artillery holes that sent the barge to the bottom of the Aegean are still visible. The stern of the wreck is still facing the beach. It's possible that the wounded soldiers on board were killed in the artillery battle. Members of the team, however, did not find any human remains on or near the wreck. We may never know what happened. Although the wreck was discovered by sonar on an Australian diving expedition in 2010, a Polish expedition is the first to dive and explore this interesting wreck. It's been hard work, but we've learned a lot about the history of this campaign that has been so far concealed in the depths of the sea. The exploration of shipwrecks in the Dardanelles Straits begins. This area is much more demanding. Currents and poor visibility are the conditions which the Polish team must now face. The first wreck to be explored is the battleship Messedia. Members of the expedition knew that this ship was not in the best condition. What they find during their dive surpassed even their worst expectation. The wreck is difficult to navigate, being nothing more than a pile of scrap. Bad visibility and the huge degree of devastation greatly limit the diver's ability to even know what section of the ship they're exploring. Twisted and bent metal plating is found everywhere. On some of them, the rivets are still visible. Despite the harsh conditions, the Polish divers discovered 234mm caliber shells from the battleship Messedia. This extraordinary discovery was documented by the Polish team for the first time. 2 guns of this caliber were dismantled before the war and sent to England for repairs, from which they never returned. Until now, it had been believed that the shells were removed from the deck before Turkey stood with Germany in the Great War. During the exploration, divers also encountered several shells in the 152mm caliber. The findings of the Polish dive team have expanded on the rich history of this Turkish battleship. At the end of the exploration, the divers discovered a memorial plaque commemorating the sinking of the battleship Messedia, mounted in 2005 by Turkish Navy divers. The last wreck to be explored by the Polish diving team is located in Akbaş Bay. With the help of Dr. Peter Nikiel, an expert on the Battle of the Dardanelles Strait, the divers begin their underwater work. The focus is on a very detailed inspection. The name of this ship given by the Turkish guides seems to be unlikely. The wreck from the stern to amidships is in fairly good condition, so the Polish team was very carefully measuring and photographing everything for later inquiry. To date, a few portholes, still containing the glass, have survived on the wreck. There is nothing left of the bow of the ship. The hard work of this expedition led to some surprising conclusions. This was the wreck of the liner Tenedos, sunk by a torpedo attack by the British submarine E-11. The complete absence of the bow section of this ship was not caused by the torpedo explosion, but mostly because of all the ammunition stored there. This remarkable discovery was the last element of this extremely fruitful expedition. This unexploited area of knowledge, which is underwater Gallipoli, is a sufficient reason for the Polish divers to return to this place once again. The campaign of the Gallipoli Peninsula cost the lives or health of nearly 500,000 people. The Allied soldiers fought shoulder to shoulder against the defenders of Turkish soil. The defenders whose courage and heroism made it impossible to capture even a single strategic point of the peninsula. To this day, the Earth reveals human remains and the remains of soldiers' equipment. This blood-soaked earth, with numerous war cemeteries and a sea littered with shipwrecks, does not allow us to forget that this area was witness to one of the bloodiest episodes of the First World War. This is best illustrated by a fragment of a Turkish poem. Traveler, halt! The soil you tread once witnessed the end of an era.